What's up, people? My name is Jeffrey Kaminsky. Now that wrestling season is over, a 600-pound deadlift is back on the table. Of course, after season ended in the beginning of March, I took probably like a week off just to let my body feel good, eat a lot of food, recover, and then I get right back into training again. At least what I could do without being hurt. What you're seeing right here is my first deadlift day back in the middle of March, where I didn't want to go so heavy, so I didn't put on a belt. I just decided to do 315 pounds for a max rep set. I ended up getting 20 reps. The most I've ever done before is 335 for instead of 15. And that was 2 years ago when I was probably lifting more often than I was wrestling. You also notice I'm using straps for these higher rep sets. That's because I don't want to tear my hands up. If you tear a callus, you can't really train. As long as you're training your grip on the side, also, you're not really going to have crappy grip strength. You also notice I'm doing dead stop reps on these. That's because it's a deadlift. The whole point of the movement is to lift a heavy load from a dead stop position. If you just do touch and go reps, you're pretty much just cheating them and not getting as strong as you possibly could. Here we're going into our spring break, which was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, where I was working up to my second deadlift day. Expecting great things, because that 315 by 20 wasn't too bad. As you see, I'm doing these light weights on my warm-up reps. I'm trying to move them as explosively as possible. You should always be trying to put your maximum force into the bar when you're warming up. The only thing that's going to change the actual bar speed is the weight on the bar. And now we go into my kettlebell swings, just trying to get my hips moving explosively before I move into my main set of deadlifts. And since I hit 215 by 20, I figured 335 for 12 wouldn't be too bad. But it ended up feeling really heavy. I'm not sure if it's just the fact that I have a crappy bar at my house or the fact that the metal plates are heavier. But after this first set of 12, I was dead. You can already see that my reps are starting to slow down, and despite that, I'm trying to make every single rep look the exact same and as technically perfect as I possibly can make them. Now, obviously, you should be doing everything in your control to set yourself up to have successful training sessions where you feel great. But that's not always going to happen. More likely than not, on some of the more important days of your life, you're probably going to feel crappy. And if you haven't experienced that and trained through it at some point, you're not going to get what you want out of life. I think this is going to be my last rep right here. Thank God. Now I'm moving to my ab wheel rollouts, just trying to strengthen that core to hopefully get some bigger strength numbers.
Now, of course, it is the second deadlift day back, but that should not feel that heavy. So, in between sets, we're going to fuel up with some clean carbs and some Pedialyte electrolyte powder.
Now I'm moving to my second set of 335 for 12, and these first few reps, they felt heavy, but they're pretty solid. This fourth rep, I ended up fidgeting with my strap, and it all went downhill from there. Now, of course, this is frustrating to fail at things that you think you can or that you used to be able to do. This is when it is essential to understand the concept of periodization. That's just a fancy word for saying that in order to get really good at one thing, that means you're spending a lot of time on that one thing that is not being invested into other things. When you are in season, your sport and those specific skills that you need to be successful at that sport take absolute precedence over everything else in your training. When you are in your best wrestling shape, you are not at your strongest. Or at least you shouldn't be if you actually take your strength training seriously in the offseason. I guarantee that if you cut your mat time in half and ate more food, you will be stronger immediately. But both of those things are not very conducive to wrestling at a high level. So, moving into an off-season, you should expect to be detrained when you start hammering the weights again. I dropped the weight down to 275 for this third set just to get some good quality reps without killing myself. After all, muscle memory is going to kick in soon, and your gain's going to come right back. Here I do some light hamstring curls just to get some pump in my legs, so I killed them after that first deadlift session.
So it's currently Monday of my spring break, and last Tuesday, as in a week ago, I did my first hard deadlift day. You guys saw the set of 20 with 315, and after that I did a lot of accessory work, including some heavy hamstring curls, and that those killed my legs. I had DOMS, or delayed onset muscle soreness, literally for almost a week in my hamstrings. And normally, like, I can reach all the way past here, but they're still super tight. I can barely touch my toes now. I don't know if it's affecting the deadlift or not, but that's the reason why I'm pairing a hamstring curl with a stretch. It's not something that I normally recommend, but if you're having like a mobility problem or something, that's where I throw it in. So not only are you strengthening the muscle, which by the time you're done with that set, the muscle's pretty tired, so it's gonna be really fatigued. And when you start stretching afterwards, helps the muscle relax a little more than if you just did it when you were fresh. The muscle's super strong, it's gonna resist that stretch a little more. I wouldn't do that with something heavy like a deadlift because that's how you end up probably tearing something. With something light like a hamstring curl where you can do as many reps as you really want, that's the only time I'd kind of throw this sort of thing in. Oh my goodness.
So yeah, at this point my strength work was done for the day. I just decided to do some stuff to make my body feel good, do all kinds of mobility and prehab stuff to make my ankles, knees, and hips feel better. And set a solid foundation for the next lower body training day, where hopefully some heavy stuff is going to go on. I mean, I still have a whole another year of college wrestling, and after 3 years, your body gets pretty beat up, and I'd rather make it through that final year and not be crippled at 21, 22 years old. So that's why it's important to do all this stuff, especially in the off season. Now I move into my upper body training day, where the first movement is a barbell row. And that is because this is the back exercise to get strong and just absolutely wide and thick in the back region. This is because you can add a ton of weight to it. I mean, this is, well, I'd say it's over body weight, but that would be a lie. So now I move into bench press as a second movement. Since it's a horizontal pull, we're going to do a horizontal push in the same plane. And I've almost done exclusively close grip bench press throughout my career. So I actually think that since that uses less of your chest, that might be the reason why my chest is so tight, because it's not getting stretched on the bench. So I tried doing a regular bench grip, and in between I was hitting sets of these little band resist oblique crunches, which it's a light band, so I had to get a lot of reps in order for it to actually challenge me. Now we go into my second set, where I hit 15 reps with 205 pounds again. Since it's a lighter weight for me, relatively speaking, I was just doing double overhand without strapping up. But on my heavier row sets, I will strap up, because your back gets to a point where in order to challenge your back, your grip is going to be a limiting factor. And now, maybe sometimes you don't strap up just so that you can really challenge your grip, or maybe your back's more sore that day, so you can modify that by not using straps to get less reps. But if you want to get a big back, you need to be doing strapped barbell rows and other similar heavy pulling movements. Whether that's weighted pull-ups, heavy dumbbell rows, cheat rows, anything you need to do to get above your body weight and just absolutely destroy your back. Now, of course, you're still squeezing. You're not just completely using your legs to shoot this up, but it's okay to use a little bit of body English to get more reps and more weight. Start out strict, then get them ugly. Now, I just had to get some pump flicks while I was still decently lean from wrestling. Because at this time, I was still like 208, just eating 3,000 calories every day. More like 5,000 calories. To get the kind of strength that I want, I had to get a little thicker. Now I move into my second lower body day, where I started with my band resist good mornings, just being explosive, going into these clean pulls, which is basically just you start the movement like you would a power clean, but you explode at the top. You're not finishing and catching like you would an actual clean though. For these, you want to pick a weight that's similar or just above your 1 rep max power clean, because if you go too heavy, you're not going to be explosive and you're not going to be able to mimic the position that you want, which is basically just strengthening the pull on your cleans. And these are a little more quad dominant. It's not just like a regular deadlift, because your hips are lower, so you're using more of those quads. And I did something to my knees somewhere throughout the last year where they hurt a lot. I'm guessing it might have just been from all the wear and tear from wrestling, shooting, and being on referee's position and stuff, or like tapping the ground on lunges. But I don't know if it's patellar tendonitis or my kneecaps are just bruised or something. But anytime that I load my quads, even like a bodyweight squat or walking up the stairs, or I tap them, it really hurts. So I can't really do heavy squats like I like to. So I'm trying to find some ways just to challenge my quads. Now for my accessory work, I started with RDLs. And while I think there is a time and place to get full range of motion RDLs, and really get some mobility out of it, I view these more as a deadlift accessory exercise to work once you get past your knees to explode and be as violent as you possibly can with your hips. In between, I was getting just weighted wall sits. The reason for that is to make my knees feel better. Isometrics, because you're holding that muscle contraction for a long period of time, it gives more blood flow into those tendons and ligaments and all those happy things, because those guys don't have good blood supply. So either do a ton of reps or do a wall sit. And you get a really nasty quad pump when you start adding weight to those. Here's my last set of RDLs. Moving into the dumbbell seated good morning. This is more of a mobility and prehab exercise where you're trying to get a lot of range of motion here and really protect your back. Strengthen that stuff up that usually gets hurt. In between is working my grip, because I am doing most of my deadlift and row sets strapped. I have to do stuff to supplement that in. And a good thing about the bumper plates is the fact that they're really wide, so you have to get a really good, what's called a pinch grip on it. And that works a whole different muscle groups that you would normally compared to if you're just holding a barbell in your hand, because it's so much skinnier. Actually a little more specific to what you'd be doing in wrestling when you grab somebody's wrist. Not that anybody's wrist is probably that thick, but you get the idea. We're strengthening all those muscles, getting a good forearm pump at the exact same time. And a good thing about good mornings is they keep your back safe when you do get in those bad rounded positions, whether that's in your squats, deadlift, or just in sport. So yeah, and here's my last set of those bumper plate pinch holds. Just getting that nasty forearm pump. Oh yeah.
Good thing I'm an athlete.
Here we have some collagen powder for my achy old joints. I don't know if this stuff actually works, but either way, it helps me get some more protein in. A nice raspberry flavor, so I can actually drink this stuff. If you just get regular collagen and try to drink it, it's not exactly the most pleasant thing. But this is beautiful. Easily digestible. Of course, we've got our good creatine. This is by BioSteel, which sadly filed for bankruptcy and got acquired by another company. So I don't know if they still make this brand of creatine, but this stuff is by far the best on the market that I've used. The best way that I've found to actually get this in just dry scoop it like a man. So yeah, I'm almost out of this stuff, which is making me very sad. Almost out of protein powder too. It's gonna be a sad day. So we got some meat lasagna and some good entertainment right here. Alright, so here's my last training day of this spring break, which was 2 or 3 weeks ago, where I started with vertical pulls as my rope pull-ups. Let me tell you, want to talk about grip strength? You're going to feel a whole different kind of forearm experience doing these. You see like jiu-jitsu guys throwing a gi, which is their jacket, over the pull-up bar and doing pull-ups on that. My God, you get a great forearm pump, great sport-specific grip work. And in between those things, I was just hitting my bench presses and my band resist pile-off presses, where you're just trying to resist their rotation, to work your core stability. And something I've been doing with my bench lately is I've been doing it twice a week, where I'll have one day where I'll pick a weight, hit as many reps as I can for sets, and that second day, I'll keep the same weight and cut the reps in half, but do pause reps, which is what I'm doing here. That way, you get twice as much work on that bench. You can increase your technique, because after not benching for a while, my technique is fairly detrained. Combine this, you're getting it twice a week, and you add in the fact that I'm now back on creatine, TREN, and eating 4,000 calories a day, oh man, the sky is a limit, let me tell you. It's only a matter of time until I break those old bench PRs. So, fun fact, I actually recorded all of this video and got the commentary done up to this point about 2.5 months ago, and I'm just now getting around to finishing it. So, if things aren't exactly lining up timeline-wise, that's exactly why. But better late than never, and I have about an hour of my workouts from then, so expect some more stuff in the very near future. Here, moving to my last set of bench, where the pauses, they feel longer in your head, but when you watch the video, you get an objective reality check. That's one of the important things and why you should record some of your training, just so you can understand what it actually looks like instead of just how it feels. Here we move into my assistance work, where I'm just trying to hit all 3 heads of the shoulders. First is starting off with the dumbbell overhead presses. And normally I prefer a barbell overhead press, but when you do that, it kind of locks your shoulder into a more rigid position. So using dumbbells allows your shoulders to move a little more freely. And that's just what I wanted to do at the time, because I don't usually use dumbbells for that. Now I'm moving into my lateral raises, trying to hit all 3 heads of the shoulder, because in pretty much every single pressing movement you're going to do, whether it's a bench press, overhead press, etc., you're going to hammer the crap out of your front delts, but unless you specifically train it, you're probably not going to get any work to your side and rear delts. And funnily enough, those are the things that when they start to grow, make your shoulders look massive and give that boulder shoulder 3D delt effect. So that's why it's important to make sure that you're training those things and giving it the proper attention that they deserve. And you'll notice when I'm doing those rear delt flies that I'm doing them single-armed with my hand posted on a bench. The main reason why I'm doing that is to actually hit the rear delts. A lot of times if you have dumbbells in both hands and hinge over, you end up doing a bastardized lateral raise, shrug-looking thing that doesn't even hit your rear delts. The second reason why I'm doing it, just because the weight is on one side, so it's going to force your abs to have to stabilize that. And so not only do you get massive shoulders, you also get some diced obliques at the exact same time. So you may as well do something like this that lets you get a better bang for your buck and hit multiple things at once. And now we're going to move into my last little set of all these movements, where I do decide to take the pump cover off. And at this time, this is pretty much perfect physique-wise, where the calories were starting to flood into my muscles and make them look massive, but I was still lean enough to show off those veins, which we're about to see in all of these things right here. And you can see that even on these smaller isolation exercises, making all kinds of happy faces. And that's a good point, that it might not be as glamorous as a 500-pound deadlift, but you can still pick a challenging load and strain. That's what's going to force your muscles to grow, and something you have to keep in mind no matter what exercise that you're doing. The intensity is what's going to force the effect to come out of it. That's what's going to force your body to grow and adapt to that new stimulus.
I don't like push-downs.
The reason why I don't like push-downs when they're just straight vertically up and down is because it hurts my shoulders no matter what I do. And when it comes to curls, like a lot of my philosophies, I'm more on the side of use a little bit of body English, lift more weights, bigger biceps. And right here you're seeing one of my new favorite movements, where you hold a plate, a very light plate may I add, and you do a Y or a T. Here is having a little bit of trouble getting out from my bench. So we're about to see some real world athleticism. As far as why I love these Ys and Ts so much, it's because they work your middle and lower traps, which help pull your scapula or your shoulder blade down. And a lot of your shoulder mobility is going to come from your scapula's ability to move wherever it wants on your back. And a lot of people's upper traps are overly developed compared to their middle and lower traps, which are going to pull their shoulder blades up and limit their mobility, especially when it comes to overhead movements. Which is why I'm throwing these in so often in my training, as my main injury prevention exercise for my shoulders.
Let's say that I'm decently pumped up, and look at this fucking shirt. It's full. And pass the Sam Sulek test. Can't touch shoulders pretty much. Oh my goodness. I don't know how that man gets his angles so good. White lats and shit. Trying to get to the point where, like, this is just me walking around, not having to get a pump to be this fucking diced and juiced. Still working that too, but one thing at a time, you know. Alright, I gotta shower and get a steak, so let's get after it.